In terms of the new information with the cameras, this is interesting. This is new. According to reports, we knew that the camera in the front of Nancy's house, they were able to get the images from, because that's how we saw the suspects. We've known that there are cameras on the side and back of the house, and now we know that the FBI has been able to obtain images from those additional cameras at Nancy's house.
She made it home. That's what he thought as he watched the garage door come down. She's inside. She's safe. Good night. He drove away. 4 hours later, she was gone. Not wandered. Not fallen. Not confused. Gone. Taken from inside a locked house in a quiet neighborhood, on a street where nothing ever happens, by someone who had been watching her for longer than anyone yet knows. Someone who covered his tracks so carefully, so methodically that 42 days later, with over 400 investigators, $1 million reward, and the eyes of an entire nation locked onto this case, he still has no name. What you are about to hear is not a cold case. This happened weeks ago, and it is still happening. Before we go any further, I need to warn you. This case involves the premeditated targeting of a vulnerable elderly woman. The details are deeply disturbing. The evidence is chilling. And some of what we cover in this documentary has not been widely reported. If that's not something you can sit with right now, I understand. Come back when you're ready. But if you're staying, welcome to Fatal Files. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single update on this case, because we are deep inside an active federal investigation, and things are moving fast. Drop a comment right now and tell us where in the world you're watching from. This story has reached every corner of the globe, and we want to know you're here. Because the more people who know this name, the harder it becomes for the person responsible to stay invisible. Sunday morning, February 1st, 2026. Nancy Guthrie does not show up for her weekly virtual church service. Her close friend waits. No Nancy. She calls. No answer. She contacts Annie. The family drives to the Catalina Foothills house around 11 a.m. They walk through the property. No sign of Nancy anywhere. Around noon they call 911. Pima County Sheriff's deputies arrive and immediately recognize something is seriously wrong. Nancy's phone is still inside the house. Her medication is still there. Her personal belongings undisturbed. The home is described by investigators as presenting conditions that are very concerning. Blood is found on the front porch. It will later be confirmed through DNA testing as Nancy's. A forensic blood analyst who reviewed the scene noted the stains appear to be drip stains falling at a 90-degree angle, consistent with an active bleed rather than a transfer. The Nest doorbell camera has been physically removed from its mounting. Sheriff Chris Nanos addresses the media and states directly, he believes Nancy Guthrie has been abducted. Within hours, the response becomes one of the largest missing person operations in Arizona history. The FBI's Phoenix field office deploys immediately. U.S. Customs and Border Protection joins. Search and rescue teams fan out across the desert terrain. Tracking dogs follow trails through brush and cacti. Drones sweep the surrounding hills. A low-flying helicopter equipped with a signal detection device designed to pick up low-power emissions from Nancy's pacemaker is deployed over the area. It produces no confirmed results. The FBI reviews thousands of hours of surveillance footage pulled from cameras across the greater Tucson area. Between the Pima County Sheriff's tip line and the FBI's own line, over 40,000 leads pour in. The FBI's initial reward of $50,000 is raised to $100,000 as the investigation scales. An anonymous donor later adds over $100,000 more. Within days, law enforcement tows a blue Honda CR-V from Annie and Tommaso Sione's driveway. The same vehicle that dropped Nancy home on January 31st. Nancy's personal Subaru, parked inside her garage when deputies arrived, is also impounded. This is a full sweep of all vehicles connected to her last known movements, not a targeted action against any individual. The forensic examination of the Honda is extensive. Investigative reporter Dave Mack confirms on March 10 that the car is at a mechanic's shop, not being returned, being reassembled. Investigative reporter Brian Enton draws a parallel to the Brian Kohberger case, where federal investigators fully disassembled a vehicle as part of the forensic process. As of March 11, the Pima County Sheriff's Department confirms the Honda has still not been returned to the family. On February 4, journalist Ashley Banfield reports on her podcast Drop Dead Serious that a source she describes as having impeccable credentials and direct knowledge of the investigation indicated that Tommaso Sione may be the prime suspect. She acknowledges in the same broadcast that these are, in her words, just musings and not evidence. The damage to public perception is instant. Sheriff Nanos responds at a press conference and calls the report reckless, stating, "We don't have anybody here listed as a suspect." He describes the vehicle impound as standard investigative practice. Reports also surface of friction between the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department, with sources indicating the sheriff's office reportedly restricted FBI access to certain evidence collected at the scene. Both agencies publicly maintain they are working cooperatively. On February 16, Sheriff Nanos issues an unambiguous official statement. The Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in this case. He adds, "The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel." Retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffin-Daffer, a 25-year Bureau veteran, offers important context. The searches of the family's phones, computers, and vehicles were all consent-based. Law enforcement asked and the family agreed without hesitation. That distinction matters. Consent searches do not require probable cause. The family gave access to everything, and investigators found nothing that implicated them. Meanwhile, Savannah Guthrie's husband Michael Feldman breaks his public silence and urges anyone with information to call the tip lines. The family is cooperating on every front. And the investigation is still building. The blood on Nancy Guthrie's front porch is the first confirmed forensic anchor in this case. It is tested. It is confirmed as hers. Combined with her phone, her medication, and her personal belongings still inside the house, it removes any remaining question about whether she left voluntarily. She did not. On February 13th, the Pima County Sheriff's Department makes a significant announcement. DNA has been recovered from inside Nancy's residence that does not belong to her and does not belong to anyone with documented legitimate access to the home. Sheriff Nanos is careful with his words. "We believe that we may have some DNA there that may be our suspect, but we won't know that until that DNA is separated, sorted out, maybe admitted to CODIS, maybe through genealogy." The challenge is real. The profile is described by law enforcement sources as mixed, potentially containing biological material from more than one person, and present in low enough quantities that extracting a clean, reliable profile requires extended laboratory work. A forensic expert with DNA analysis experience notes something important from the surveillance footage. In at least one image, the suspect's lower face is not fully covered by his mask. That means saliva could be among the samples recovered at the scene. That detail matters enormously to investigators. Meanwhile, approximately 16 gloves are recovered from various areas near the house during the canvass. Most are confirmed as belonging to volunteer searchers who discarded them in the field. One glove found approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home is different. It appears visually consistent with the type worn by the masked suspect. It is sent first to a private laboratory in Florida, then returned to Arizona for additional testing before being formally entered into CODIS, the FBI's combined DNA index system, which holds over 19 million offender profiles and has assisted in more than 758,000 investigations since its creation. The result comes back on February 17th. No match. Not a single hit across the entire database. The DNA from that glove also does not match the DNA recovered from inside Nancy's home. Sheriff Nanos puts it plainly, "Now we start with genealogy and some of the partial DNA we have at the home." Then comes a second blow. The glove is traced through DNA to a restaurant employee working at a business located across the street from where it was found. Sheriff Nanos tells Tucson station KVOA directly, "The owner of the glove we found working at a restaurant across the street. It has nothing to do with the case. The suspect's gloves have not been located." Investigators now turn to investigative genetic genealogy, the same technique that identified the Golden State Killer after more than 40 years and has since cracked dozens of cold cases across the country. The FBI confirms the technique is being applied to both the glove DNA and the DNA samples recovered from inside the house. C.C. Moore, chief genetic genealogist at Parabon NanoLabs, one of the foremost experts in this field, speaks publicly with full confidence. "Thanks to the power of investigative genetic genealogy, it is just a matter of time now until they discover who that DNA belongs to. The barrier is access. The 3 largest ancestry databases, Ancestry, 23andMe, and MyHeritage, hold a combined total of over 50 million genetic profiles. All 3 require court orders before law enforcement can access them. Only smaller opt-in databases are currently available without one. But the process is underway. It takes months. It has solved cases cold for decades. The DNA results in this case could break everything open. When they do, Fatal Files will have it first. If you are not yet subscribed, now is the time. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below. Do you think investigative genetic genealogy will identify this suspect? And how long do you think it will take? Tell us where you stand. On Monday, February 2, 2026, the day after Nancy Guthrie disappeared, ransom notes begin arriving at media outlets. Not law enforcement. Not the family. Media. KOLD News 13, the CBS affiliate in Tucson, receives the first note. Approximately 12 hours later, TMZ receives the same note. About an hour after that, a second Tucson station, KGUN 9, receives a version of it. The note demands millions of dollars in Bitcoin, payable to a specific wallet address. It sets two deadlines, 5 p.m. on Thursday, February 5th, and a second deadline of Monday, February 9th at 5 p.m. The note warns that if the first deadline passes, the demand changes. If the second deadline passes, there will be, in its words, a more serious consequence. What makes investigators treat these notes as credible is what is inside them. The note references Nancy's Apple Watch and describes its exact location, a detail that had not been released publicly. It references a floodlight at the property that authorities had not mentioned. TMZ founder Harvey Levin reviews the note and says publicly, "The grammar is perfect, it is structured and layered." Regarding the Apple Watch detail, Levin adds, "It was not in a place that you would necessarily immediately think, and that seemed to pique the FBI's interest." The choice of recipients is also telling. Sending the note to two Tucson area stations specifically requires knowing which stations exist and which ones matter locally. Both KOLD and TMZ confirm the wording itself suggests the writer has familiarity with the Tucson area. Multiple sources involved in the investigation tell TMZ the operating theory is that the ransom notes were written by the kidnapper themselves. The family responds on Wednesday, February 7th. Savannah, Annie, and Cameron record a video. Savannah speaks directly to whoever is holding their mother. "As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know without a doubt that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you and we are ready to listen." The note had provided no way to make contact. There is no response. February 9th, the second deadline arrives. On that same day, Savannah records another message. "We believe she is still out there. She was taken and we don't know where. And we need your help." The deadline passes. No exchange. No contact. No proof of life. Activity is however recorded in the Bitcoin wallet referenced in the note around 5 p.m. on February 10th. AZ family confirms at least one transaction took place. The amount is not disclosed. A second note arrives at TMZ on February 11th. This one demands 1 Bitcoin, worth approximately $66,000, not from the family but from anyone willing to pay for information about the kidnapper. The tone is different. It does not appear to be from the same person. TMZ forwards it to the FBI. A third note, later described by Fox 10 as highly sophisticated and involving a cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin, is sent to TMZ. All three notes are in the hands of investigators. Then comes the impostor. On February 4th, while the first ransom deadline is still 24 hours away, a 42-year-old man from Hawthorne, California named Derek Colella sends 2 text messages to Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni using a VoIP app that generated a fake phone number. The message reads, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction." 3 minutes later, he places a 9-second call to a family member. The FBI traces the number within hours. The account is registered to the email address derekcolella@gmail.com. The IP address leads directly to his California residence. When agents confront him and read him his Miranda rights, Colella admits everything. He tells investigators he got the family's contact information from a cyber website, had been watching television coverage of the case, and sent the messages to see if the family would respond. Court records reveal Colella has a prior record, previously charged by the LA County District Attorney with stealing nearly $10,000 in unemployment benefits while working as a clerk in the Los Angeles County Department of Health Services. He is charged with transmitting a ransom demand in interstate commerce and using a telecommunications device to harass. The charges carry up to 20 years. FBI Special Agent in charge Hythe Yankee issues a direct warning. "To those imposters who are trying to take advantage and profit from this situation, we will investigate and ensure you are held accountable for your actions." Colella makes his first court appearance on February 6 in Santa Ana, California, held on a $20,000 bond. He appears in Tucson federal court on February 12 and is released under electronic monitoring with no contact permitted with any victim or witness. He has no connection to the actual abduction. Then on February 10th, a 36-year-old man named Carlos Palazuelos is detained following a traffic stop in Rio Rico, Arizona, approximately 60 miles south of Tucson. A search warrant is executed on his property and vehicle. By the following day he is released without charges. Speaking to reporters after his release, Palazuelos says he did not know who Nancy Guthrie was, and that he simply made deliveries in the Tucson area. The real kidnapper remains unidentified, and the investigation pushes forward. 9 days after Nancy Guthrie disappears, FBI Director Kash Patel takes to social media and releases what investigators on the ground have been waiting for: doorbell camera footage. Chilling black and white images of a masked individual at Nancy's front door on the night she was taken. The release surprises local investigators and Pima County Sheriff's personnel. Sources tell CNN they had hoped to keep one specific image confidential, the one believed to show the suspect on a different date, without his backpack or firearm holster. They had been using that detail quietly as they worked to identify him and narrow the motive. The public release ends that strategy. But the footage produces results. More than 4,000 tips pour into the Pima County tip line within 24 hours of the release. At the White House, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirms that President Trump personally reviewed the surveillance footage and that his initial reaction was of pure disgust. He calls on the public to contact the FBI immediately. FBI Phoenix releases a formal description of the suspect based on forensic analysis of the doorbell footage. He is male. Approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 inches tall. Average build. In the footage he carries a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, a backpack sold exclusively at Walmart as part of the retailer's private label outdoor brand. Walmart provides investigators with purchase records covering several months. Sheriff Nanos calls the backpack one of the most promising leads in the case. Investigators also observe that the suspect is wearing a ring on one hand, and that a dark mustache is visible below the ski mask. The firearm he carries is positioned in a front-facing holster. Johnny Grusing, a 25-year veteran of the FBI's Denver division, reviews the footage and notes that the holster position is not tactically sound, and that the suspect's gloves would have made firing it difficult. Grusing's assessment is that the weapon may have been carried primarily to instill fear. As of the latest NBC News interview, Sheriff Nanos confirms that other than the backpack, investigators have not yet publicly identified any other clothing items the suspect was wearing or where they may have been purchased. Now multiple experts are publicly weighing in on who this person is and why they targeted this family. Tracy Walder, former FBI special agent and CIA officer, is direct in her analysis. She does not believe for a moment that this was a burglary that went wrong. In a burglary, she says, we don't tend to see them taking a victim with them, that just tends to not be the case because it bogs them down. Her primary theory: the suspect was either upset with something Savannah Guthrie had done professionally or publicly, or had developed an obsession with her, and that is why this family was targeted. It is just too targeted, Walder says. This is not a house that you just come upon and decide to rob. Jennifer Coffin-Daffer, retired FBI special agent with 25 years in the Bureau, offers her number one theory publicly. People with some tangential connection to the household exposed insider knowledge to criminals. Someone who knew the property, knew Nancy's schedule, knew about her medical vulnerabilities, and passed that information to whoever carried this out. She also believes the case began as a kidnapping for ransom, and that something went terribly wrong after the fact. Her conclusion: there is someone out there who knows who that man on the porch is, and that person is what will break this case. Retired homicide detective Phil Ramos, a 3-decade veteran of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, responds directly to Sheriff Nanos's public comments about knowing the motive. His assessment is measured. While authorities may have figured out the why, the who, and what are still missing. Knowing motive, Ramos says, depends on how serious that motive was to the perpetrators, whether it was money, revenge, or something else entirely. Sheriff Nanos himself ties it all together in a single statement to NBC News. We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted. But we're not 100% sure of that. He adds a warning the public has not forgotten. Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family you're safe. Keep your wits about you. The suspect is still out there. And investigators believe he could act again. As of today, this is where every thread in the Nancy Guthrie investigation stands. The suspect remains unidentified. No arrest has been made. No suspect has been publicly named by either the FBI or the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Investigators have not ruled out the possibility that more than one person was involved in her disappearance. An antenna-like device observed in the suspect's pocket in doorbell footage has raised serious questions among analysts about whether a signal jammer was used to coordinate the disruption of neighborhood surveillance alongside the physical abduction. The DNA recovered from inside Nancy's residence does not belong to her, and does not belong to any family member or anyone with documented access to the home. The Pima County Sheriff's Department confirmed as recently as March 13 that it continues to analyze laboratory materials, images, and video evidence. Investigative genetic genealogy is underway. The process is active. The blue Honda CR-V has been returned to the Guthrie family following the conclusion of the forensic review. What the examination yielded remains part of the active evidence file and has not been publicly disclosed. A vehicle captured on a Ring camera approximately 2.5 miles from Nancy's home at 2:36 a.m. on February 1 remains unidentified. Investigators are actively working to identify it. A damaged utility box around the corner from Nancy's home remains under active investigation as a potential connection to the reported internet outage that night. On March 10, Sheriff Nanos confirmed that cadaver dogs, deployed earlier in the investigation, have been placed on hold. He told Fox News Digital, "They are available if needed in the future." Retired police sergeant and National Police Association spokeswoman Betsy Brantner Smith offered one possible explanation publicly. One reason not to deploy cadaver dogs is credible information that she is still alive. Meanwhile, a former FBI agent has publicly drawn a connection between this case and a California teenage home invasion ring previously known to target wealthy Arizona families for cryptocurrency. That angle is under active review. A separate individual came forward claiming to have seen Nancy in the days before the latest reporting and presented evidence to investigators. The claim has not been confirmed. The total combined reward now stands at over $1.2 million. $1 million from the Guthrie family. $100,000 from the FBI. More than $100,000 from additional donors. Savannah confirmed publicly the reward can be paid in cash. If you have information, call the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI. Calls are accepted anonymously. You can also contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900. On March 2, Savannah, Annie, and Tommaso were seen together laying yellow flowers outside Nancy's home in Tucson. On March 5, Savannah stopped by the Today studio in New York City to be with and thank her colleagues. She told them, "We still believe in a miracle. We still believe that she can come home." Kidnapping survivor and activist Elizabeth Smart, when asked about this case, acknowledged the statistics are difficult but was direct. "I did come back. There are other victims who do come back. We can't give up." Nancy's home has been released from crime scene status. The family can return. Sheriff Nanos said it plainly in his most recent NBC News interview. "I think from day one we had strong beliefs about what happened and those beliefs haven't diminished." He also issued a warning that has not been forgotten. "Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family you are safe. Keep your wits about you." 44 days. One masked suspect with no name in the federal database. One partial DNA profile still being built in a laboratory. One ransom deadline that passed without a word. One family standing outside a house in Tucson, leaving flowers and holding on. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She raised 3 children alone after her husband died too young. She worked, she worshipped, she lived independently in the same city for 50 years. She came home on January 31 and the garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. She has not been seen since. This case is not cold. The forensic work is active. And it will break. If you are not yet subscribed to Fatal Files, now is the time. The moment DNA results come back. The moment a suspect is named. The moment this case moves, this channel will have it first. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Share this video. The more people who know Nancy Guthrie's name, the harder it becomes for whoever did this to stay invisible. Drop a comment below. Which piece of evidence do you believe will crack this case? The DNA? The Ring camera footage? The backpack? Tell us where you stand. Nancy Guthrie deserves to come home. And this case is not over.